In this video, I'm going to be talking about the pros and cons of the 6.7 PowerStroke after owning one for over 200,000 miles. We're going to start with the cons because it's probably why you clicked on this video, and I mean, let's be honest, we all want to know what the bad things about these engines are, don't we? So we're going to talk about that. Con number one with the 6.7 PowerStroke, it has to be for me the upper oil pan. I had it resealed at a dealer and they used the wrong sealant, and because the 17 through 19s don't have a gasket on the pan, if you don't use really good sealant, they leak. So I'm gonna have to get that replaced, but the truck is currently at 202,000 miles and yeah, it leaks/seeps oil. Not fast enough where it's noticeable. I do check it now every week and I haven't noticed that I'm really losing that much. If you're gonna buy one of these, you gotta crawl under the thing and look to see if that upper pan is leaking, because it's one of those things that's it's not going to catastrophically fail your truck, but it's just a pain. And, you know, if you can catch it and make someone else deal with it, that's definitely worth doing. The other con with this engine, it has to do specifically with the fuel system that provides this engine with its, you know, high pressure injection. And the CP4 actually, I think, is an overrated problem. To be completely honest, like, I just interviewed a guy on my channel who had a CP4 that made it almost 900,000 miles. My CP4 has 200,000 miles, but the trucks where the CP4 survives, it's like their owners have been using an additive since they bought the truck, right? And not everyone knows that you should run an additive. Some people still think they're snake oil. If you still think it's snake oil, there's a great video that the Repair Geek did with the Motor Oil Geek where they basically tested diesel fuel versus some of these additives, and the additives do increase the lubricity and the cetane in the fuel dramatically and help your high pressure fuel system. But on top of that, I think the biggest con is just because of the CP4 and the high pressure fuel system and the need to have good quality fuel, you're gonna spend a lot of extra time and money with the additives and filtration. Now the additives, it's a small investment, right? That's not a huge deal, and it does help your emissions. It helps, you know, the truck run better, you get better fuel economy. So that is kind of a small thing. The fuel filters though, like I have a disaster prevention kit, and then I even switched to the metal filter kit from H&S Motorsports. And I mean, but you're still changing every 10 to 15,000 miles, 3 fuel filters. And, you know, it's just one of those things that if you don't want to have to worry about where you're buying fuel, you don't want to have to worry about an additive, and you don't want to have to worry about changing fuel filters regularly, a gas truck looks pretty damn good. And that it would be the biggest thing. Like, if you don't want to have to worry about fueling, the filters for the fuel, the additive for the fuel, where you buy the fuel even, because some diesel fuel is better than others, just buy a gas truck. Because it's annoying. That's the biggest thing. And you know, again, this is a con, right? And to me, the reason I own the truck is because I think the pros outweigh the cons for having a diesel, because I drive a lot. But they are not low maintenance, you know, and you get a lot of miles at them. They're fun to drive. I don't know. If you're not gonna use it for that stuff, then it's like you're gonna be just putting a lot of time in. So, fuel. The last con, just because it's annoying and nobody likes it, including me, is that diesels have emissions. And I know I was one of these people that didn't fully comprehend the complexity of the emissions systems that are installed on our trucks when I bought it, and you can just get in real deep. I actually called a dealer recently just out of curiosity to see what it would be to replace a DPF and SCR system. And they have to replace a bunch of the sensors when they do that, because typically the NOx sensors are just like fused to the DPF because of all the heat cycles and the rust. And they said it would be $7,800 to put a new DPF on my truck. So after I picked my jaw up off the floor, I realized that if you're not running an additive and taking care of the after treatment system by running like good diesel exhaust fluid, like the Platinum Def, like, you're just rolling the dice for when that's going to happen. Now, you know, obviously diesels without emissions run really well and they can actually breathe, but it's, at least at this point, super illegal to remove the after treatment system. But if you are thinking of buying one of these trucks, which is why you clicked on this video, because you wanted to see the pros and cons, the after treatment system and the exhaust gas recirculation are huge cons. Because at the end of the day, it's a ticking time bomb. You know, you're just going to be kind of waiting around, you know, and running up the miles, which is coincidentally what I'm doing, to basically see when the thing decides to crap out on you. And yeah, it's like an $8,000 repair bill when it does. You know, not to scare you away from buying a diesel, but if you buy a gas truck, you don't have to worry about any of this. Now, I've gotten 200,000 miles out of my original DPF and EGR system, and the truck still runs flawlessly, puts out a ton of power. So if you do take care of it, it will last. But it's like, do you want the stress of having to deal with that on top of the fuel system, on top of the leaky upper oil pan? Like, I don't know. That's up for you to decide. All right, don't worry. I'm going to do some pros now because yes, like you, I'm tired of being negative here on this video. What are the pros of this engine? I think number one, horsepower and torque numbers on these PowerStrokes are insane now. I mean, with the Alumaduties and the new truck, like the high output puts out 1,200 foot-pounds of torque. I mean, how much more do you need? And that's with a DPF on it, which is insane. It is crazy power, and that power is fun to drive, you know? And when I was towing campers, I could go pick up any size bumper pull that I wanted, and you're towing it, it just doesn't even feel like it's back there. You know, up hills, whatever. It'll go the distance, but give you an insane amount of power. And so if you need that, like if you're gonna tow, you know, heavy machinery, or if you're doing a lot of miles where you're on the highway getting the thing to operating temperature and you're running miles, this is definitely the engine for you. I mean, I'm at 202,000 miles, and I put the truck on a dyno at 197,000 miles. And with the air upgrades I had done, it made 428 wheel horsepower. The stock on this truck still makes 390. The 2019s, the 17 through 19s make 390 wheel horse with stock, you know, airbox and intake manifold. But to have a truck with 200,000 miles and emissions make 428 wheel horsepower, you know, I honestly was expecting a lot less because I was worried about my DPF health, and it's obviously still flowing just fine. I have the original turbo on here. But yeah, I mean, if you want power, the trucks have it. They're fun to drive. There's a lot of fun aftermarket upgrades to make even more power. So pro number one has to be the power output, power and torque output of these trucks. Pro number two, I already kind of alluded to this, but longevity. So, you know, on paper, if you take care of a diesel truck, it is going to outlast a gas truck. There's been multiple PowerStrokes on YouTube, both the steel-bodied 6.7s and the Alumaduties, that have made it up to almost or exceeded 1 million miles. The most I've ever seen was one on PowerStroke Tech Talks channel with A-Rod. He had a guy that had a steel body that had 1.3 million miles on it. And so, you know, if you're willing to do some extra mods and do all the extra maintenance and maybe do oil analysis and stuff, like these engines, they're going to go. I mean, you know, not as far as like a semi-truck engine, it will go. And I think, you know, whether Ford likes it or not, they've built an engine that is very durable if taken care of, you know. And now S&S has the DCR pump, so you can basically fix the fuel system. And at that point, it's like it's the emissions is kind of the only variable. You know, put a DCR in, and then if you remove some of the other problem parts, like that's a bomb-proof truck, honestly, in terms of a power plant. And kind of with power and durability, I think one of the awesome things about this engine, because I'm like a motorsports enthusiast, I like turning my daily driver into a bit of a project truck as well. There is a ton of aftermarket support for the 6.7 PowerStroke. So if you're thinking of buying one and you like to, you know, do some mods here or there, like there are just endless amounts of things that you can kind of tweak with, stuff you can change, you know, from really expensive to not very expensive. Like there's a ton of stuff out there. The last pro is driving experience of this engine. And I mean, it kind of goes with power, but it just goes. And if you're doing a lot of highway miles, you should get a diesel, especially if you're doing a lot of highway miles towing a heavy camper or a gooseneck. because these things just want to go. And the more you run them, the happier they get. At that point, you just got to do your fuel filters, you got to do your oil change your other fluids. They'll just go, and it's fun. If you like motorsports, they're definitely fun to drive, but you definitely also need the right application. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this video helped you understand some of the pros and cons of the 6.7 PowerStroke from someone who's owned one for 200,000 with the emissions on. If you have any other additional questions, let me know. At the end of the day, there are some really annoying issues like the upper oil pan and the CP4 and the fuel filters and overall the added expense of owning a diesel. But if you understand those going into it and you understand what you need to do to kind of mitigate issues, the truck will be awesome. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time here on PowerStroke Maintenance. Cheers.